I had come to Japan as a tourist and had planned to stay for a week. As I unpacked my suitcase, I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. The quaint, antique house featured a futon bed and a compact kitchenette. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was not quite right. While I was apprehensive about potentially disturbing my neighbors with my nocturnal activities, I was equally apprehensive about the possibility of being disturbed by them. Knowing how thin the walls of traditional Japanese structures can be, I hoped for the best while steeling myself for any unexpected disturbances. Ultimately, I resolved to make the most of my stay, and hoped that my neighbors would be as accommodating as possible. I had gone to the old market in Tokyo an hour before my stay and found an old shop that sold traditional Japanese dolls. I was drawn to a small doll with delicate features and a serene expression. Honestly, I had no intention of buying another doll. But the salesperson's demeanor caught my attention when he told me that the doll I was looking at was not for sale. I became stubborn and insisted on purchasing it, convinced that it must be something special. His insistence and persuasion made me feel like I had to have it, even though I didn't really want it. Little did I know that this innocent souvenir would lead to a terrifying ordeal that would stay with me forever. The doll seemed innocent enough, but it wasn't long before strange things began to happen. Objects would move on their own, and I would wake up in the middle of the night to find the doll in a different position than where I had left it. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but the more I observed, the more convinced I became that the doll was somehow possessed. It was as if it had a will of its own. The doll's presence began to affect the other residents of the apartment building as well. They would knock on my door late at night, complaining of strange noises and sightings of a small figure moving through the halls. The tension in the building began to escalate as the doll's influence grew stronger. I tried to get rid of it, but it always seemed to find its way back to my apartment. I began to feel like I was losing my mind. As the days went by, the doll's hold on me became stronger. I would find myself talking to it, pleading with it to leave me alone. But it never listened. One night, I woke up to find the doll standing at the foot of my bed. Its eyes seemed to glow in the darkness, and I could feel its malevolent presence in the room. As I attempted to flee, the doll's movements defied all logic. Its tiny body moved with an unearthly speed, keeping pace with my every step. Its whispers were like a chill wind in my ear, taunting and threatening me with an unknown power. Despite my efforts, the doll seemed to always stay one step ahead, as if it knew my every move before I even made it. I was trapped, caught in a game of cat and mouse with an entity I couldn't begin to comprehend. After 2 weeks of unexplainable events in the apartment, including strange noises and objects moving on their own, I knew that the doll was the source of the evil energy. With the help of a local spiritual expert, I learned that the doll was possessed by a malevolent spirit that had been trapped inside for centuries. To break the curse, the expert performed a series of rituals and cleansings on the apartment, and on the doll itself. It was a long and arduous process, but eventually, the spirit was weakened enough to be banished back to the underworld. The next morning, when I woke up, the doll was gone. No longer did I feel the cold breath on my neck, or hear the sinister whispers in my ear. The apartment was silent, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace and safety. As for the possessed doll, it was destroyed in the cleansing process, reduced to nothing but ashes and dust. And while the memory of those haunting weeks would never fully leave me, I knew that I had overcome the evil that once held me in its grip.